Good morning. Let's get started doing some work today. Alright. I gotta open up all my stuff. I usually open it up already, but I just haven't yet. All my notes. All the insane scrawlings of somebody trying to make something. Morning, Ishu. Good morning, Lucas. So let's see, what are we doing today? Well, it looks like we're going to continue working on that crawl. Alright. So let's get started. Good morning, Karakan. Alright. I'll be right back. Alright. So Lucas, you're asking if the McDs over here are just run down and awful? Well, it really depends on where you're going. Say in a lot of places, in like big cities, in kind of bad areas, they'll be awful, and you know they're just kind of full of people just basically just sitting around being homeless. But others are real nice. Like there was one in Seattle that's got this giant, 300-gallon saltwater aquarium in it. Stuff like that. So I mean, there's a McDonald's for every environment. They know their customers. Alright, so we're working on the crouch. So one of the things we want to do is, well, let's fix the condition for leaving the crouch. So we should leave the crouch only if we're not holding down any of our access keys. So let's boot open our stuff. The normal maps? Oh yeah, we've had the normal map stuff working for the past week. If you've been looking at what Adam's been working on, we got that in there, and we'll be doing, Adam will be doing a whole bunch of hand painting for those normals, but we'll be doing that much later. Thank you for hosting, Lucas. Always appreciated. We'll be taking over Twitch here in no time at all. We'll turn it into the only Bitey 24/7. Except we'll have a few other games. We'll just replace every other game with a Chinese knockoff version, which has all the characters replaced with Brackenwood characters. Alright, so I need to grab the gameplay for the camera and the player. Alright, so let's see. We need to have the crouch animation stuff going. Yeah, it'll just be, it won't be twitch.tv, it'll be twitch.bitch, and it'll just be me complaining for about everything all the time. So the question is, if we are already crouching, I think we're going to have a different condition for if we don't. So like if we're not crouching, we'll have a different, like to enter crouch mode, we'll have a different, you know, there'll be a different condition. But to leave crouch mode, we're going to figure it out. So is it going to be once to crouch, or is it going to be actually crouched? So maybe the movement state should have some sort of call. Let's see. So we have set crouch flag, and it's a Bitey movement interface. So if we add a function to the Bitey movement interface, we can go ahead and add this. So let's add a function. Let's call it isCrouched. And let's add an output. Let's add a boolean to that. So isCrouched is going to be the return value. It may indeed. Can I uncensor chat? Because that's just always stupid. No, I don't really know. Whatever. Alright, so we need to change the movement controller. So we have an isCrouched. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to call like get current state. Thank you for following, Cowther1988. I am currently working on getting the crouch stuff working properly in my game. One of those is the conditions for entering and leaving a crouched state. Right now what we're going to do is I need to be able to tell if we're actually crouched, because we have the intent to crouch inside of the kind of the logic controller, and inside of the movement controller we actually crouch or not. So I guess it's this wanted movement state, and we're going to want to compare it to this thing. I think I need to call get class or something like that. So I guess that's as simple as it is. Like if our current movement state is the crouch state, then we're good. Alright, so for our set crouch flag, if we are crouched, the only way we want to get out of crouch is if we are not holding the down key. So like the y-axis, it's going to be the z-axis. So let me see, it's going to be movement. And we're going to call is crouched. And that's going to be a separate line of stuff here. Alright, so if crouched is false, then we're going to go execute all of this sort of stuff. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're going to get the x-axis value, and I mean, we could get the axis value, or we could just get the button value for if the button is, I guess, held. When we do that, is key down. We want the left stick down action. Alright, so if that is false, I guess this thing basically just, if we return without setting this thing, then we're good. So it's really just calling this right here. Alright, so if we are already crouched, having our key down is going to have us crouch, and it doesn't matter how fast we're running or anything like that. So let's see if it works. Doesn't seem to be working. Let's see. Is there some sort of crouch state trigger? Doesn't look like it. So it's gonna have to be inside of, like, we've got this y-axis and x-axis stuff. Now this is one of the problems with blueprints, I think, is I'm not sure how to search through everything at the moment. Alright, so let's see. We've got this can crouch and all that sort of stuff. So if we're on the ground, if our velocity is greater than trot speed. Alright, so we want basically, if we are already crouched, then obviously we can crouch. So let's go ahead and slide this down a little bit. So if we can crouch, no, it's not. It is crouched. So if we are crouched, then we can just head straight over and return true. Let's take a little look at Bitey and see what's up with that collision. Yeah, obviously his crouched collision box is not correct at all. His crawl, that is. It looks like it's... Yeah, it's all just messed up with... I guess all that stuff got changed. Like, we had it fixed at one point, and I guess it got toasted. Looks like it's just all in the same spot. Yeah, no longer has the translation stuff going on over time, yeah. So, what I should do is, let's see if we can fix that. Looks like Adam might not be online, so I'm not sure if we'll have the latest with Bitey. So let's crack it open and see what we've got going on. So let's see, where is this object? And how tall is it? We are at minus 1.08, 11.6. And then we are, our scale is at 1 by 1.5. So let's see what the other crouch thing, so it's going to be. So it starts at the position for this one. So it looks like what happens is it stays at 0.92, and then it goes to 11.6 negative, and its scale is 1 by 1.5 again. Alright, so that's crouch and crouch. Now we want to look at crawl. I mean, there's creeping, but I don't think we have that in the game at all. That's just sliding. And I'm probably screwed for these displays, aren't I? Like, I should be seeing the color palettes are totally fucked up. I'm not going to be able to export this, am I? I mean, or maybe they're not messed up. Yeah, it looks like color palettes are messed up, so... Oh no. Well, we had these fixed. Alright, so it's S-crouched. The pause is -92. It looks like maybe I'm just looking at the emissive layers and not understanding it. I'll try and export anyway. And the scale is 1 by 1.5. So what needs to happen, if I remember properly, I think I had some notes on this. So those are my notes from quite a while ago, and basically what I had, let's see if this works. This should be at 2, and this should be at 1.08. Alright, so let me try it at 2.5 and 1.58. And let's go to the crouch. Ooh, I'm gonna have to change all of these, aren't I? No, only the D layer has the rigging, so we'll be good. Alright, so if I remember correctly, I had to make some keyframes here for all three of these. And I think it's like it's like insert a keyframe, and it's a stop motion keyframe, and then let's see, if I insert a keyframe here, on this frame it should be 2.5. This should be 1.58, and this should be 1.58. His crouch is not the same as his crouched. Like you can tell that that animation was updated and this one was not. Something like that, or the opposite. Though I'm thinking the opposite because my previous rigging would have made this one correct. And this is at 2. Yes, this should be at 2.5. And these should be at 1.58. Well, we'll see what it looks like then. So let's try exporting this and see what happens. And then we're going to need the other crouch. So let's see, S crouch. We got that. S crouched. We've got this. And W crouched. Got sprites, emissives and normals for everything. Well, let's see what we can do with an import then. So I've written a custom import tool here for all the sprites to fill out all the flipbooks for us, import all the collision, and hook everything up. So let's see if it actually does what we want. Yeah, it's looking correct. Let's see what it looks like in the game. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like. Basically, Bitey's head is the collision. So if he's running around, he'll collide, with his head into stuff as opposed to something else. And the animation is just wrong. The animation needs to be like right now he's sticking his head out forward and keeping his butt where he's supposed to be. He needs to kind of do the opposite. He needs to stick his butt out when he crouches in order for it to work nicely. So the question is, for the crouch, what exactly do we want him to do? Like, we could just have it play the animation based on the speed that he's going. But it might be better to... There's no real winning with the 2D characters. It's not a 3D mesh. I can't like blend together the two sprite states. So it's probably best to just have crawl play at the speed that we're crawling. So let's see. Well, let's get the speed going so it looks correct. This is the wrong state. We need the crouch state. Alright, so the duration of the crawl is going to be this is going to be an absolute value, so it's greater than 0, so the duration is going to be Guess we should have a min and max for the duration for this thing. But it's basically going to be, the duration is going to be the speed. Maybe it's going to be a constant divided by the speed. So let's see. The speed is going to be pretty high. It's going to be like 10,000 or something like that. I want to get the total frames on the crawl animation, and no, I don't need to do that since it's going to be calculated based on the duration there. But that's not necessarily true. I probably want a certain frames per second for the animation. So why don't we go ahead and make that available? So I want to get the default frame count or something like that. So we want like the animation. We're going to want get animation data for crawl. We have the flipbook, and I want to get frames. Alright, so it's going to be for every frame that we have. What are the units here? So the frames are in like frames per second. So it's frames over seconds, and then we've got meters per second. So we're just going to get frames per meter. And how many frames per meter would we expect? 100 frames per meter? I don't know. Let me just play with it. And let's put a min float on it. You know, like the duration can't be any greater than 5 or something. So let's see what that feels like on the Xbox controller. I think it needs to go a little bit faster. So we're going to multiply it by 150. 200? Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe I needed 50. So the funny thing is, if you're using an Xbox controller, you can't hold down and right at the same time, right? But because our input system is so amazing, I can hold down on the keyboard and then use the Xbox controller at the same time. So you can have different input states than you would expect. Like I can hold up and down at the same time, even though I'm on an axis. So that's the other thing, is that transition animation. We might want to play that as well. So let's get that, the about face animation. Let's see if we can play that. Let's make sure we've even got that about face animation. Alright, so we've got the crouch turn. So that's what it looks like. So I guess we don't. Alright. So let's think about this. This is crouch turn, is the flip book. So how exactly are we going to do this? Basically, we want the... Where are we actually setting our direction towards our vector? Is that going to be inside of the player logic object? Directional movement. Set wanted velocity, get axis values. Look up and down. Well, let's take a look at our movement object and see, like, set wanted velocity in der Vec actually calls set direction auto. So what's the question with this? The question with this is, what should actually control this? It's basically we have a transition animation that we'd like to play, and we also don't want to be able to move while we play it. So what should be responsible for this? Because, I mean, the controller should just be like, hey, the left axis is hit, like wanted velocity and direction should be fine. So what we actually want is we want the movement object itself to be like, oh, I need to transition to this other direction. So it's like what we need is so there's a couple cases of turning around. Like in this case, we are crouched. I think it's basically like we want to call like play like on if we literally just did something like call the movement controller component and said like, hey, our movement direction has changed. What we could do is we could set our maximum velocity to 0 or something like that for our object inside of it, and then just play that animation and then reset it. So I think it might be that easy, because if we wanted to turn around, but we had like a turnaround animation that was with you running, and like Bitey, like, you know, he flails his arms like a cartoon character. Alright, so we should call the move controller to inform of direction change. And we should also call the movement state to inform of direction change. And that should be enough. We'll just call that animation, so it'll be like Crouch calls movement to set max velocity to 0. Crouch plays the turning animation. Crouch resets the movement once anim is finished. Crouch needs to handle if we switch directions again before animation is finished playing. So we want like a current facing direction and then a wanted facing direction on the crouch. Alright, so we need to add another event to our movement states. So let's check them out. Should we return a like true or false maybe? I don't think so. So it goes old direction, new direction. Ooh, interesting. So, it's not quite as simple as this because we basically don't want to actually change the direction of the object yet. We want to wait for it. So we're going to want a flag on the we're going to want to flag on the movement object or something like that. Because we need to override that change, because we're not going to want to flip the object until we're done, because that's what we're doing. So how are we going to gracefully handle this? So we could have an on direction change or something like that, and we could also have something like we could do it like right here. So I guess it's something like if m auto change transform for direction equals false, then we return.